Cause I'm doing this for the thrill of it, killing it, never not chasing a million things I want. And I am only as young as the minute is full of it, getting pumped up on the little bright things I want. But I know they'll never own me.
What's going on, guys? It's K-Dub here with another episode of CryptoZombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having an excellent day-to-day, beautiful green day across the board for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We do have Polkadot and Cardano duking it out neck and neck. Polkadot touched $40, Cardano up over $1. So maybe the fact that we are seeing Bitcoin kind of go a little bit sideways today, taking a little bit of a breather from the massive surge that we saw yesterday. Some of those profits are potentially trickling into the altcoins, and I do expect some of them to have big moves. Ethereum has actually been lagging quite behind. I do expect a big move for Ethereum relatively soon, but what I want to talk about today is something for Bitcoin that could actually add tremendous buying pressure. And some people are saying, oh, this could be the short-term top. We need a reversal. We need to have a correction back down to 48,000, maybe even 42,000. But for the next 10 days specifically, there could be something adding massive buying pressure to the markets, and we need to talk about why that could actually significantly decrease the amount of Bitcoin available, right, for people trying to buy it, and it could be really massive for the price. I mean, it could even push us up to something crazy like 80K. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do want to share that with you, and I want to discuss why a lot of people are still underestimating exactly how far this thing could go before we actually hit the top. But on that note, inevitably, my friends, there is going to be a cycle peak. Now, when will that happen? Is it going to follow the 4-year cycle that Bitcoin usually does, or will it extend potentially into next year and beyond? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. We're going to discuss a specific thing to keep your eyes on, and if this does happen, it's probably a very good chance that that's the top of the cycle, and you might want to consider selling some Bitcoin. Obviously not financial advice, but we'll talk about that, and we'll even mention a specific target to keep your eyes on. So, if all that sounds good to you today, could be an exciting weekend. I expect a big day on Monday, and let's hop directly into the charts. Now, you can see right here, Bitcoin is really just hanging out in this channel. You can see we broke out of this wedge, which would typically be bearish, but as I guys told you, this is a bull market, so the trend is your friend until the end. So all of these bearish formations are pretty much invalidated. You can see right here, we actually had 2 perfect retests on the previous resistance as support, and now we are in this second channel. You can see we have been held down by this peak here, and we just touched it again. So Bitcoin could potentially start bouncing around, somewhere in this channel, consolidating before trying to go back above and then turning this resistance into support, right? Now, obviously, there is always the chance that Bitcoin falls down to some of these levels, right? We were looking at the 45,500. We have the 42,000, lots of accumulation around the 48K level as well. Keep in mind that we do have a CME futures gap, if you really think that even still matters at this point, and that is with Bitcoin sitting at 55,530. That is where the market's closed, but something we need to talk about, and we need to just first of all look at crypto as a whole right here, okay? So we're currently at a $1.7 billion market cap. Now, I want you guys to just remember, first of all, look at how massive this looks, and look at how small the previous cycle was with the 20K top. Now let's zoom into that just so we can get a more accurate number. And you can see right here at the top of the market back in 2017 when Bitcoin peaked at 20K, we had an overall market cap of about $830 billion. And did I say billion for the market cap? Because I meant to say trillion, guys. Yes, we're actually at a $1.7 trillion market cap. Just caught myself. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we are essentially double, almost double the original market cap that we had, and we still have a potential long ways to go. Now, check this out before we talk about price movements and things like that, but Bitcoin's amount of supply last active in the past 10 years just hit an all-time high of 1.9 million. It's not just the price or market cap that is hitting new highs. We have adoption, trade, and the overall network is more active than ever. Now, check this out. For some traders, this is creating some fear, all right? They're calling for a correction, maybe further long liquidations. For others, though, they are saying this is just the beginning of the rally to $100,000 Bitcoin. In fact, if you've been on Twitter and you're wondering what's going on with the laser eyes, well, the laser eyes stay until we hit 100K, right? So, but here's the thing. Stablecoin exchange inflow, especially for USDC, one of the top metrics to watch out for, has increased consistently as Bitcoin crossed over $53,000. So the inflow hit a new all-time high. This had an impact on trade volume on exchanges, and it is working alongside Bitcoin's scarcity narratives to boost its price. And we know that as Bitcoin continues to leave exchanges and we have stable coins going into exchanges, this is showing that the demand is beginning to exceed the supply. And let's talk about one thing that could put a lot of buying pressure on Bitcoin, at least in the short term, right? And that is our good old buddies over at Microstrategy. So listen to this. We know that they did complete their offering. Now, they did 1.03 billion, which is much higher than the original 600 million that they were originally going to offer. They say the proceeds will be used to buy Bitcoin at the rate of about $2,000 per second, according to Michael Saylor. Now, how are they going to do this? Well, they're going to be using a bot. And this is the so-called SaylorBot. They say that it may take about 10 days to complete the purchase as per previous timelines. And here's the craziest thing. They're not buying this OTC, so they're not doing it on an over-the-counter trade deal, which won't affect the markets. They are going to be buying this spot price over at Coinbase Pro. You understand what this means? So if you're going to have the SaylorBot going for the next 10 days, buying an average of $2,000 of Bitcoin per second, well, this could add a very significant price-setting demand for the next few days, something that could potentially increase Bitcoin's price considerably. And yeah, I mean, if you got the SaylorBot going in the background and you have these other institutions trying to buy, if they can't get an OTC deal, then we are going to have a serious liquidity issue. And we're going to see the price moon to levels that I probably can't even chart right now, because we're probably going to go straight to 70K or 80K, which at that point, maybe we should be getting a little bit concerned if the price starts to move too fast. In fact, one thing I mentioned in my Telegram group was that it wouldn't be out of the cards to see a fake out dip before Monday just to have that sort of, reset and then massive price pump. But like John Wick said over Zero Hedge, distorted perception. Now, as Bitcoin climbs higher into price discovery, we must adapt our psyche and perception of general price action. This thing can move a lot bigger and go a lot faster than most of us think, especially as the momentum gets rolling, right? Now, CZ, he actually had an interview over in Bloomberg, and he was talking about where Bitcoin could go and how he could see it hitting 1 million, even $10 million. But in the short term, when asked, if there might be some sort of speculative froth around it, he says, I definitely think that this is just a reflection of how mainstream Bitcoin has become. And I think what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. He says right now we've passed the previous peak only by about 2.5x, but we are seeing, I think he's talking specifically about Binance, a lot more users, right? He talks about all these registrations. They're having 300,000 new registrations per day. He talks about institutions coming in, DeFi taking off. There's just simply a lot more activity. There's so much infrastructure. And as we said before, you're not seeing people speculate to try to catch the top in order to sell for cash. Instead, you're seeing guys like MicroStrategy actually selling fiat to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible because they see it as the future of finance, in the sense that really there's nothing that's going to hold value as good as Bitcoin has and does, right? So he says this is the thing about crypto. There is no fair value. You just got to represent how much much wealth. If you see in the market, there's only about 11 listed companies that have their holdings in crypto, at least that they've, mentioned so far. So he talks about, if you just see these companies having, let's say, 1% adoption globally, you're looking at a crazy move. Talking about that 1% allocation, he says if they were to do this, you have about, let's say, 650,000 companies in the world, or at least relatively well-established companies, right? He says if all of them allocated 1% to Bitcoin, we're probably going to see potentially a 1,000x growth. And if they allocate more than 1%, it's going to get even bigger. So he says people do not quite understand the magnitude of what is about to happen. And then when they asked him, he said, I don't know. It could go to 1 million. It could go to 10 million. There's really no ceiling on something that has a limited amount with endless fiat printing, right? Endless amounts of money to buy limited amounts of Bitcoin. It's kind of already written within it. But I want to hand it over to my buddy Kevin Svensson. If you haven't checked out his channel over at Kevin Svensson Crypto, definitely check it out. Me and him actually do have a lot of similar ideas as far as these market cycles are concerned. I do sort of agree with this 4-year cycle and where we could be topping out. But I do want to play this video clip because not only does he give an excellent analysis of a potential fractal, but he also talks about a specific date, time when we could be looking for the Bitcoin top, as well as one indicator that could be the biggest signal that the top is in. And after we're done, I'm going to look into this myself and actually analyze if that is possible based on previous results.
And so looking at Bitcoin now on the daily, once again, we are going parabolic and we're actually getting more exponential. And like I was showing you guys in this fractal pattern, after we break out above this high here, just like 2017, we punch up for a couple weeks. And I think we're getting to that point now where we're going to punch up for a couple weeks, potentially, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks or something. And we could run up, we could actually end up, running up towards 70 or 80K, roughly. We'll see what actually happens. At least $10,000 up from here. And then looking to trade sideways and break down out of this pattern and create a larger scale pattern. This is classic bull market action. Now, we may not necessarily go down that low. We'll see how it actually plays out. Maybe we only go to 50K or something, but we're likely going to create a larger scale parabolic trend. And the trend will, of course, extend out. We'll have to adjust our trend lines for the longer term parabola. And this is very classic Bitcoin structure. And again, the emotional feedback, the speculation, and the momentum is what creates these trends. And then eventually, Bitcoin is going to get to a point of over-exuberance, and it's going to be overvalued at a 6-digit level, right? If Bitcoin hits 250K, it's definitely overvalued. And once we break the long-term parabolic trend line, this is our final sell signal, right? Once we actually get a top, reverse down, and break below this trend, that is our final sell signal of the bull market that, the demand is no longer strong enough to maintain our parabolic trend, and then eventually you break down. Eventually you break down and you enter a bear market. And this timeline is not necessarily drawn out perfectly. It's actually, I think it's more likely that we would top out somewhere in the summer, right? So let's just draw it out to like June. Somewhere between June and August is when I expect us to top out and break the long-term parabolic structure. I think anywhere between 150,000 and 250,000 will be the absolute max price. Forget this drawing that I have on the screen. 150 to 250K is my preferred top sell zone price, right? And at that point, that's when I think the ETF on Wall Street is going to be launched. What I think Wall Street is planning to do is pump the market up as much as possible. And then once they're ready to release the ETF, they're going to make sure that the price is completely overbought, completely overextended, and then they're going to short the market using the ETF. And that is how it's done, right? That is how they play this game.
Yeah, let's talk about what we had previously with some of these releases. Now, you might notice right here, December 17th, right, was the all-time high for Bitcoin. And on December 18th is when we had CME futures launch. And after that, Bitcoin literally went on over a year of a downtrend. You can see right here from top all the way down to the bottom right here. This was essentially 361 days before we actually started to reverse back to the upside. So that was just the first example of having something like an ETF, in this case CME futures, released at the peak. Now, although this was not at the peak, we were consolidating downwards potentially. Here's another interesting one that was released as well. So we had Backed, which everyone was looking forward to, released on September 23rd of 2019, and you could see literally starting that day, we had a massive drop from top to bottom. Actually, you could go all the way to the bottom. Bitcoin actually went on a 26% correction over the next 30 days. So, and that was a big anticipated, product that was coming out. So the question is, could the US actually be holding off for the ETF to try to catch what they believe would be the absolute top when it is overbought, and potentially using that opportunity to short Bitcoin all the way down until the bottom of the end of the next bear market? It's not a conspiracy theory, but it is something to consider. Could this be what these guys are doing? But I do think, and I do agree with Kevin, that that could be a very big top signal. So keep your eyes on that as well. And also, since we just had our buddy Kevin Svensson on, why not talk about one of his favorite projects, one of my favorite projects as well, which is Chainlink. Now, you might have noticed Chainlink's price has started to accelerate once again. And you can see recently, Danal Fintech, or Danal, not really sure how it's pronounced, a virtual asset payment service provider, announced using Chainlink oracles in commercializing Bitcoin payments in South Korea. It will be leveraging the Paycoin wallet, while the oracle will provide access to real-time market prices when converting Bitcoin to Paycoin's digital currency, PCI. Danal, I guess, has been one of the largest payment gateways in South Korea, and it launched the blockchain-based virtual asset payment service with Paycoin in April 2019. As the Chainlink oracles get integrated with this service, they will be available to over 60,000 merchants in the country. And I guess if you guys want to end on a little bit of the ETH analysis, we are having a very interesting, if you zoom in, it does look like consolidation, but I really want to see us hold above this trend right here. You can see, this has actually held us down short term. We had 1, 2, 3, and we actually kind of even danced below it right here. So depending on where you move your line, you could say that we're sitting slightly above it, but I really want to see us get above this line, have that nice retest, and start bouncing. If we don't, I do believe that we would probably get supported at some of these previous levels, with my first level being at around the 1847 for ETH. But guys, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I do this every single day. Next week, I don't really know how many videos I'll be able to get out. I will be traveling. I'll let you guys know what's going on with that. Make sure you follow me over on Twitter. It's at the CryptoZombie. On days that I can't do videos, I usually do a lot more tweeting. So that being said, guys, thank you so much for coming back to the channel. If you guys haven't checked out my videos, which are popping up right here, right now, check them out. You guys rock. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.